Yo, bro, I'm here. Buzz me in.
I still remember the day the first time I saw you in church. I think it was the second time I went to that church. I don't remember you the first time I went.
I remember you the first time you went. The first time you went, you preached on, I think it was on Shama.
Wow.
You know about Shama?
That's old school.
I don't know if we spoke that day. The church was packed that day too. I mean, it was a church, but you know.
It was like only 50 people, but it was packed with 52.
For like a Thursday night or something like that.
It was packed with 52. So I remember that first time, I don't remember seeing you. I think I came again on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And then on that Sunday, you were singing. You were part of the worship team. So para mí, yo no esperaba que el adorador de la iglesia iba a ser un profeta de Dios también. And I heard you sing, you know, and y'all were worshiping and stuff like that. I finished preaching, and then me arrodillé, and you kneeled next to me.
Okay.
And when you kneeled next to me, you gave me a word. Don't ask me what word.
A prophetic word.
No sé qué rayo dijiste. I don't know what you said. I don't know if it came forth. I don't know
if it came to pass.
I don't know if you're emotional that day. But you weren't always raised in church.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I came back to the Lord in 1998, but my mom went to a church that was a little more open-minded, wasn't tradicional.
Right.
So I didn't come out of that system, but when we went to the church, we wasn't always there. The church that I met you at, obviously I had went through my issues out of church. Kind of our parents split up. They split up in their marriage. Wow. And it led us to, you know, doubt on God and doubt the situation and wonder why we're going through it. And it affected my older brother a lot more. My brother had me by 3 years. And it just led us to a path of, you know, committing crimes and living your life like you want to live without God. Right. The situation that was happening in my family, I was the youngest son. My mom and my brother couldn't handle it at the moment. And I was just kind of like an innocent bystander. In the beginning, I didn't know what was going on until I finally caught on, okay, I guess our dad is not coming back home. My parents separated like when I was 11. My brother was around 14.
Wow.
And that caused, you know, a crisis in our family. And it led us to end up, you know, stealing cars and being out in the streets. And I'm talking about 94, 93, 94 when we grew up at. And that city was the #1 car theft capital of the nation at that time.
The thing is, the lack of a paternal figure was what pulled you, of a father, took you out.
Yeah, because he was a good father. I mean, we had no complaints. You know, he was a good father. He was loving. And then just one day out of another, I mean, I guess there was issues going on between them that we didn't know about.
Of course, parents
like there always is in every marriage. But it was just, you know, we didn't get no warning. He just didn't show up.
So one day dad is there, and then the next day dad is gone.
The next day.
No warning, no nothing. Warning. I could imagine you asking, yo, where's dad? You still remember those images of you asking your father?
Yeah, I remember my mom calling him, kind of crying, asking him if he was coming back. And then I remember one time we went to his job, and she kind of confronted him, and I remember just him saying, you know, that no, he wasn't coming back. So it was was just a reality check for our lives. And then once we knew that he wasn't coming back, then we just really rebelled. And I kind of just followed suit of my older brother and just kind of fell into that. But then I went on my own path in the streets, you know. Then I stopped selling cars and I went to selling drugs. After I got arrested a couple times, I kind of got tired of it and I went on to another career in the city. I got arrested about 2 or 3 times and I just didn't see the purpose of it. It was really just joyriding for the fun of it.
Right. You were making money. You were just
no money.
robbing the cars.
There was a lot of risk involved, you know.
Right.
Car accidents, eating stop signs, eating red lights. And so I said, you know, it's not even worth it. I said, let me go and try to make some money. And that's how I evolved into the...
And how old were you?
I was 14.
You were 14 stealing cars?
14.
And then selling drugs?
Selling drugs.
So I have a son who's 14. And he's a teenager, but in my eyes, he's still my baby. I could not imagine my kid, my son Eli, at 14, doing that. You had no fear? What would go through your mind for you to, like, I know you were missing your dad, you were going through stuff at home, and then you came from being incarcerated a couple of times.
Yeah. It was the in thing at the moment. You know, it was what people were doing in the streets. You saw it all the time. You constantly heard, cars doing donuts on the corners. You know, you were out there. You saw this all the time. You saw young kids with these beautiful cars. You're like, where did he get that car from? You find out it's stolen. They will actually, you want to jump in and joyride, and then you would, and then they'll teach you how to do it. And at the end, it's like, you know, riding a bike, you know. You start riding it, you fall, you learn, you see somebody else with a good, you see somebody with a good bike, like, man, that's a good bike.
Wow,
I wish I had that bike. And then, you know, you're going to steal it, but you could get it. Wow. So obviously, it starts with other stuff. We were stealing bikes first, and then we started stealing cars. But it just progresses. So it just led us to a life of crime, and obviously it was all that rejection we were feeling, maybe why he left, maybe why he didn't consider it, you know. I kind of felt like it had nothing to do with us, and you know, he just kind of was still part of our lives, but even now I still have a relationship with him, and I forgave him, obviously, after I came to Christ. Right. But it just was never the same. You feel like it was a gap in your life, years missing that you can never relive again. In my case, I would say it was more disappointment. I would say my brother was anger. I was just more disappointed about the situation. I was young, 11. I don't know really what's going on. I don't know why. And then after we kind of reality hit us that this was really happening, and then, you know, he got with another woman, remarried, and then I was kind of involved in his life because he would come get me. But that just led us to, you know, surround ourselves with friends, you know, friends that weren't of good influence. But that's the lifestyle we chose based on the situation we went through. That's why I think people commit a mistake when, you know, they judge people based on what they're going through now without knowing what led them to that. So like in my case, when I was out there stealing cars, selling drugs, people could have judged me and said, like, you know, he's a nobody, you know, he's not worth nothing, he ain't never gonna make it. But you don't know what led me to that situation. People have an assumption that all drug dealers and individuals that commit these type of crimes are a certain type of person. Exactly. The bad of the bunch, la oveja negra, lo peor de lo peor. Yep. So we judge based on what they do, but we don't know what they went through. We don't know what led them to that situation. If there was a lack of a father, if it was an abuse, if it was something led them to live that lifestyle. I remember when I had got incarcerated as a youth, you know, there was a population about maybe 300, 400 young kids under 18, just all in there for different type of crimes. And, you know, I thought my situation was bad, but I had friends who were incarcerated and couldn't get out because there was just no one to sign them out as an adult. Their parents had either died, their parents were either in the streets, on drugs, and there was actually nobody who could come say, okay, I'm gonna sign you out so you can get out of here. So that's a rough situation when you have nobody who can vouch for you and say, you know what, I'm assigned so you can get out. You know, and so I was like, at least I have parents, they're alive, they're not together, but at least I wasn't in that situation. So that's when I knew that, you know, my situation wasn't that bad. But then the turning point for me came in 1998, you know, when I got shot and faced that near-death experience that made me realize that what I was doing maybe wasn't worth it. Now when I turned 18, my focus changed because for some reason in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't want to catch an adult charge. So something was always had me fearful of. It's like I knew later on in the future would affect me. And I didn't want to, commit a crime as an adult.
Were you looking for a way out?
At that moment, I wasn't. At the moment, I wasn't looking for a way out. I guess
you just didn't want to get locked up.
Yeah,
as an adult.
As an adult, right? And I was kind of maturing a little bit.
So now you're like, let me do my thing, but not get caught.
Right. Let me be smart about it. Until they robbed me, they put a shotgun to my chest, one to my head. As they were robbing me, they took everything I had, and then they still shot me for no reason. They knew I had money, they knew I had drugs, and they knew I was an easy target.
So this was just a random.
It just was a random.
This was
robbery.
This was in Newark.
This was in Newark. They shot me in my arm, so now I have a scar of my arm that I almost lost. Thank God I have full function on it.
What type of gun was this?
It was a shotgun.
Still remember the shock?
I still remember as I was turning around and walking away, as my arm was coming down, that's when I heard the loud sound, boom, and my ear was pinging, like they said. And I just ran. I don't know how I got the strength. I mean, I know it's God now, but at the moment I ran home about 2 blocks down.
2 blocks?
Well, 2 blocks
bloody
down.
arm.
Bloody arm, yeah. Bloody arm.
La carne por fuera, hueso.
Yeah, todo mostrando ahí. And then I went home and I called the ambulance myself. And I remember that I got on the sofa and I said, Mommy, yo quiero orar, vamos a orar. And we started praying. And that's when I asked God to forgive me my sins. Because I knew if I died at that moment, I knew that it was a big chance I wasn't going to heaven. So I decided to ask for God's mercy. And I remember the ambulance coming, I just kept acting, am I going to die? Am I going to die? Because I knew what type of gun I got shot with. I knew it wasn't a regular small gun. And I knew the impact on my body was dangerous, was worse than getting shot with a regular gun. And I remember them saying, no, you're going to be all right. But in my mind, I was like, well, they must always say that, just so you don't panic.
Right, to keep calm.
And the last face I saw before I went out was my dad's. My dad showed up, and they asked him, is this your son? And he said, yeah. And they put, the anesthesia on me, and then I passed out. So it's weird that, right, the last face I saw, not knowing what my destiny was going to be, my end, was my dad's face.
Incredible.
Yeah, and then he was the one that kind of said, yeah, that's my son, and allowed them to, I guess, operate on me.
The one that you always needed, your father.
Yeah.
Decía la porción bíblica que leímos en el versículo 12, dice que cuando entró en la aldea, le salieron 10 leprosos al encuentro, los cuales se pararon de lejos. Jesús entró en una aldea lleno de leprosos. Era una aldea separada para los leprosos de ese tiempo, donde unos huían, Jesús entraba. Nadie entraba a esta aldea de leprosos por temor a ser contaminado por su lepra. Pero qué bueno es Dios, que Dios entra donde otros corren. Dios entra donde otros huyen. Nadie quería enfrentar tu problema, pero aquí entró el maestro. Nadie creía que tú ibas a sobrevivir, pero aquí entró el maestro. Habrá alguien en esta tarde que le pueda dar gracias a Dios que Él entró en mi aldea.
A partir de esa experiencia, this is it. I'm going to church. I'm going to look for God. What was the steps after the fact?
After that, after I was about a week in the hospital, I came out. Once I come out, I kind of, I went back to the block. Obviously, show everybody I'm a survivor. I made it. Everybody's, doing the red carpet for you. Yeah, you made it. And then, after that, I kind of started visiting some churches. And God was dealing with me little by little. Until I went to that church in Newark where God spoke to me through one of his prophets. He gave me a word, and that prophetic word he gave me really impacted me because it let me know that God really was real and that he was the one that saved me. Because the things he told me, nobody knew. And that's how I know, okay, God is real.
Now, this was your first encounter with the prophetic?
This is my first encounter with the prophetic, right?
And it just blew your mind?
Yeah, I might have seen it before, but I didn't know it was the prophetic. But this time, I guess I was older, so I knew. Yeah, and it blew my mind. I guess the message that was said, because it made God so real to me. I never knew God was that real, right?
He's not a God in heaven just sitting there, mirando de lejos y que la gente viva como.
Yeah, because he told me the devil tried to kill you, but I saved your life, says the Lord. So I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Wow.
And I had a long sleeve shirt. You couldn't see my arm to know what had happened. So I knew at that moment, okay, it was definitely God who saved me. And God just became so real to me. And that changed my perspective on God. It kind of made me feel like I owe him now. Now I owe him because my mom would say, yeah, God saved you. And then you're always like, yeah. But you kind of back in your mind, you think it's chance too. Maybe I just got lucky. Maybe it was something I did.
So before this prophetic word, your mom would tell you, mira, pero Dios te salvó.
Sí, ven a la iglesia, tú sabes que Dios te salvó. Y so me hacía sentir culpable en un sentido.
Was that now that before that prophetic word, you're going to church, pero like, okay, let me repay the favor. Since you took care of me.
Exactly. I was going, but it was just like, I would go, sit, wait till the worship to finish and the preaching, and then we get up and go. I wasn't involved in the service at all. I was more going kind of to like pay a debt to my mom. Or in other words, going for her.
Right. So now, this man of God comes up, I don't know, you passed up, he called you?
Yeah, he kind of was preaching, testifying, he had a similar
lifestyle
experience, kind of went through what I went through, so I really related to this preacher for the first time in my life. And he asked, if you want prayer, he asked the people if they want prayer, and you can just come to the front. And this time I just felt led to go to the front. And when I went to the front, that's when he prayed for me and gave me the word and all that, and I started crying, and that's when God became real to me.
Last thing you want to talk about, para tirar ahí. Yo lo meto. No quiero hablar de algo.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine.
Habla.
Tengo un amigo mío que es un amigo
This
mío
is not coming out of the video.
que se llama Eric Fontanez, profeta Eric Fontanez.
Eric, we're putting on blast. Broma, we're joking. I'm gonna put it.
No,